Now we're going to look at an application involving a three-part inequality. Sarah works part-time as a waitress while she's in school and earns $11 per hour plus tips. In a week, assume she averages $150 in tips. I think that's a pretty big assumption, but we'll assume that, okay? So express her average weekly earnings as a linear function p of the number of hours that she works h. Okay, so what that means, expressing a linear function named p of the number of hours she works h, we're really finding a function p of h, right? And h is the number of hours that she works, right? They defined that in the problem. So if we're trying to come up with an expression that would give her weekly earnings, and she earns $11 per hour, then we'd need to take the number of hours she works and multiply it by 11, right? So we'd have 11h. And then she also earns tips on top of that, right? And we're making an assumption that whatever she earns for the week in terms of her regular hourly rate, she would earn $150 on top of that, right? So the function that would express her average weekly earnings would be P of h equal to 11h plus 150. Okay, so now what do they want us to do with that? How many hours would she have to work to make between $350 and $400? Okay, so now the P of h value is her weekly earnings, right? All right, so we're going to sandwich P of h between $350 and $400. Does that make sense? Because the output of that function represents her earnings. Okay, so now what is P of h? I'm just going to make a substitution in there for P of h because we defined P of h as 11h plus 150, did we not? Yeah. So then we have a three-part inequality, 350 less than or equal to 11h plus 150 less than or equal to 400. Okay, so that's a three-part inequality that we can solve, right? So remember with a three-part inequality, what you do to one side, you have to do to all sides. And our goal is to get the variable by itself in the middle, right? So I've got to subtract 150 from all sides, right? That's the first thing. So I've got 350 minus 150 less than or equal to 11h plus 150 minus 150 less than or equal to 400 minus 150. Okay, so 350 minus 150 is 200. And then we're left with 11h in the middle. And 400 minus 150 is 250. And now we're going to divide all sides by 11, okay? And it looks like we're going to get into some numbers that aren't exact. So as we get into some numbers that aren't exact integers, because we're working with an application problem, go ahead and find those as decimals, right? Just sticking it into a calculator here. It's about 18.18 repeating, right? And so we have that less than or equal to h less than or equal to, let's see, 250 divided by 11, 22.72. Okay. All right. So what does this mean in the end? We have h in the middle, and the question was how many hours would she have to work to make between $350 and $400, right? So when I put the P of h equation, the 11h plus 150 in there, and we started to solve this three-part inequality, we have h in the middle when we're done, right? So, and h is the number of hours that she would have to work to make between $350 and $400. And h is the number of hours that she works, right? And in our case, we're answering the question, how many hours does she have to work to make between $350 and $400? As I'm looking at this, I would say, well, she would have to work roughly between 18 hours and 23 hours, right, to make that amount of money. If she worked 23 hours, she'd make a little bit more than $400. But generally speaking, I don't think people work 22.7 hours. So we'll just round to the nearest hour to get the idea here. Okay, so let's write this in a complete sentence. Sarah would need to work between 18 and 23 hours, roughly, to earn between $350 and $400.